And then friends, David Paulides, Canadian Missing Project. This is Huck, the executive producer of the show, laying down right in front of the sign for our Symphony of the Seas, November 9th through the 16th, Bigfoot Cruise. And go to Gather Up is one word, events, and look it up. I'll be speaking there along with Meldrum and Mayor. Huck goes, hey, give me some more time on camera there, Dad. Okay, so, yeah, by the way, this is Huck TV. She's the princess of the show. There you go. And we've been having some hot days up in northwest Montana. Got up to 90 yesterday, 90 today. Huck hangs out inside with me. Every once in a while, she just gets a fit of fun and starts turning around the house a million miles an hour. That's what she just was doing, so she's a little out of breath. But the house is cool. She likes staying in here, and so she's going to hang out with us while I do this show. And this show is number 5. Number 5 in the series of Dinkey Creek in Fresno County. Yes, number 5. I told you before, there's a lot of people missing in this area, and it's a pretty tight cluster. Very peculiar. Now, before I get started, one thing I recognized that some questions came around, I should cover it up. I mean, I should uncover it and tell you. The Dinkey Creek has a place called the Dinkey Creek Inn. Small restaurant, serves sandwiches and breakfast. And then they also have a U.S. Forest Service campground called the Dinkey Creek Campground. And there's a campground host there. In fact, one of the sites, it's a big one, you could put 50 people in there. And then they have paved arteries inside of each campground. You can go online on the U.S. Forest Service site and reserve a campground space. What it says is that the campground's adjacent to the creek, thick forest of ponderosa pine and cedars. And this is kind of weird, I didn't know it. They have drinking water on site, and they also have flush toilets on site. Pretty nice. And there is also a campground host. Now, for people who have never really gone camping, a campground host is like the manager of the campground. And you could sign up to be a campground host at the beginning of the year through the U.S. Forest Service. And then you stay there all year for free in normally a trailer. And then you keep the campground clean, and you clean the toilets, and you do all that good kind of stuff. And usually take somebody really social. I've never met one that I didn't like. They were all really nice people. So the Dinkey Creek store has fishing supplies, a grocery store. It's just a nice little cute store out in the middle of nowhere. And there's a payphone there for emergencies. And then just down the road is the Dinkey Creek Ranger Station. And from May to September, it's open 7 days a week. And I can see why now. After doing all these stories, I'll bet it's a busy location. And if by chance you need more services, there's more further kind of north, and that would be Shaver Lake. And then they have an interesting sign at the bottom of their post, the Forest Service. It says, "This is bear country. If you're camping, keep your food in bear storage containers. Do not feed the animals. And do not put food in your car." We've talked about this before, but one more time. If you put food in your car, there are bears, because they have really strong nails, that can put their nails between your door frame and your roof, and they will lean back 2, 3, 4, 500 pounds of them and break the window and break your door frame and go in. Yeah, I've seen it a bunch of times. And people get there and they think, oh my God, somebody broke into my car. No, someone didn't. It was Mr. Bear that broke into your car. once they get in your car, it'll be destroyed. So do not put food in your car. Do not keep gum in your car. Do not keep anything sweet in your car. All right? I'm just telling you. So let's get going. The first story on this involves a woman. And this is it's a pretty strange story. Her name was Sandra Hughes, 54 years old, went missing June 26, 2020. She was in the area of Mugler Creek in Madera County, just south of Yosemite, just outside the Yosemite borders. Now, when she was in college, she trained to be a park ranger, and the word was that she took survival training classes. This is what Sandra looked like. Now, Sandra had recently moved from Maui, Hawaii to California. I couldn't figure out what she was doing in Maui, and I couldn't figure out what she was doing in California, so my apologies for my lack of investigative skills in figuring that out. But the family law spoke to her June 26, 2020. And she told them that she was going to go camping up into the Sierras. So there was nothing really hidden about it. On July 1st, 2020, campers called the Madera County Sheriff's Office, reporting they found an abandoned campsite at a place called Johnson Meadow, which is above Bass Lake. The reason they called it in is because there was a lot of trash in that area. The sheriff gave him an interview about this and said that we located a campsite in which there was debris strewn around. Deputies found a folder that contained documents such as a birth certificate, social security card, etc. And right away, quote, we knew we had a problem. Giddy up. Well, all those items belong to Sandra. Just so you know, you go to a campsite, you leave that campsite exactly how you found it. No garbage on the ground, crystal clean. If that's not the way your house is, then you shouldn't go camping, because they will charge you for littering. Now, July 4th, Sandra was driving her silver Saab, and she had a low-speed impact crash with a tree near that campsite where she left her paperwork. The sheriff added, after the crash, there were people on site that witnessed it and offered to help, but she declined. And then the witnesses said that she hung around the car, and then she was seen walking into the woods without shoes. She was offered help twice, and she refused. One of the odd things about this, and I did a lot of reading about it, I couldn't find anybody that had an engaging conversation with Sandra. Now, after the sheriff made these statements, especially about the campsite and finding Sandra's things, one of her relatives came online and said, Sandra wouldn't do that. She was fastidiously clean. She would never leave trash like that around, etc., etc. But the fact remains that it was her paperwork that was there. And now she gets into an accident very close to that campsite as well, in her car. Deputies also said that the car seemed to be high-centered on a stump. And that usually means you're not going anywhere. So the people see her walking into the woods. Not a good sign. 2 days later, on July 6th, 2020, Yosemite National Park said that they found her sleeping bag just inside their southern border, 2.5 miles from the car crash site. Yosemite contacted Madera. Madera contacted other search and rescue, and the search was on. Kern, Tulare, Fresno, Madera search and rescue teams all contributed, along with Mariposa, King, Santa Clara, and Marin County. Also, the State Office of Emergency Services participated. I find that a bit odd. I think their thought was that they had some kind of emergency on their hand. They didn't quite know what, but they had a woman walking around the woods that looked to be pretty non-protected, unable to care for herself, no food or water. I could see their thought pattern here. Well, so they call for search and rescue, and they all respond. State Office of Emergency Services also got an Air National Guard Black Hawk helicopter for several days to fly the area. And then they also got multiple canine units from across multiple search and rescue agencies to come out. Now, understand, you've been living in the woods for a few weeks, few days, whatever it is, dogs are going to be able to smell you a lot better, a lot easier. Especially if you're walking in bare feet, because you're leaving your smell right on that ground. So that was on July 6th. They searched for almost 3 weeks. And they had a rotating group of searchers that were coming in. So everyone was fresh. And because the auto crash happened in close proximity to Yosemite National Park, Madera County took the lead on the search. But they also got assistance from the National Park Service because they realized it was their problem as well because of the sleeping bag in their park. They weren't sure exactly where she was. So fast forward almost a month, August 9th. Sandra's seen by 2 hunters. She's seen leaning against a tree. They said that there were posters all the way around this whole area. And they said that she was noticeably thinner than that picture in the poster. They said that she looked at them, didn't move, didn't ask for help, just looked at them. So they just looked at her. This was about 5 miles from that original campsite. They left and they went to get rangers and searchers. And they did come out and they did search, and again they found nothing, which is very odd, folks. I don't know how. First of all, I'm not 100% sure the hunters saw her, but who else would they have seen in that condition in the middle of nowhere? Now, as if the story could get any stranger, so the hunters saw her on August 9th. On July 21st, a man named Jake Gorba and his wife and 3 kids had driven their 4x4 into a place called Shut-Eye Peak to have a daytime picnic. It's a beautiful area, not far from where all this is happening. Nobody's around. So one of their sons is walking in a meadow a very short distance from the parents, and they're watching him. And they said he starts talking to somebody, but nobody was there. And their son had never done this before. It's like he's actually talking to somebody. The boy's name was Caden. So the parents call him back, and he comes back and he says, there's a woman out there laying in the meadow, and her legs are straight up in the air. She's unable to speak and she needs help. And she's wearing a black shirt, and the lady has blue hair. Well, the last photo of Sandra, she was in blue hair. And when she got in the auto crash, blue hair. This boy had never seen a photo of Sandra. And when the parents were asking him, they thought he was making things up. And he said, no, Mom, Dad, I'm telling you the truth. Honest, I'm telling you the truth. Honest, she needs help. So the parents each take a hand on Caden and they walk into the meadow. And they said, we don't see anything. And he goes, I don't either. I guess she left. That's pretty weird, folks. So the parents, being pretty smart people, they come home and they posted something on Facebook about what happened, just like I told you. Well, there is a Madera County detective that's monitoring Facebook, and the parents are thinking, well, maybe somebody disappeared out there, and that's the ghost or something. Well, there's a Madera County detective monitoring this, and he contacts the family to get the exact location, and he sends 2 deputies out there to thoroughly search the area. Well, they found nothing. So my question is, the hunters on August 9th, did they see a ghost? I don't believe that 3-year-old could make that up, especially the blue hair part. Now her legs straight up in the air kind of threw me, and I really don't understand that part. But maybe she was in a seated position when she died, or I have no idea. Well, this happened in 2020. It's 2025, and Sandra still's never been found. I have no idea where she is. I don't believe anyone without the proper attire and camping space could survive a winter up there. It's brutal. So, Sandra Lynn Hughes, 54 years old. Now, again, she was in an area named Mugler Creek. Here's Mugler Creek. There's Dinkey Creek. Distance between the two is about 20 miles. And Yosemite Valley is right there. All right? Next case. Involves a young man named Stephen Nakagawa, Japanese. Don't get many Asians on this show. Well, Stephen, 26 years old, went missing October 31st, 1978. He lived in a small city called Reedley, California, 40 miles southeast of Fresno. And Stephen was the youngest in the family. He had 1 brother and 3 older sisters. And in fact, one of the older sisters was married and had a son that was 19 years old, close to Stephen's age. Stephen's father was a Japanese farmer in that Japanese community in Reedley. Very well-known man. Successful farmer. Well, Stephen planned a 4-day backpacking trip with his nephew, his sister's son. The young man's name was Rod Iwasaki. Stephen went out, used his money, bought $400 to purchase backpack, tent, supplies for a 4-day wilderness backpacking trip east of Fresno with his nephew. Sounds like fun. Sounds like something everyone should do eventually in their life. And he planned it. He was described by his family and friends as a likable, trusting loner. So he and Rod were going to leave on the 26th. Late on the 25th, Stephen gets a call that Rod had the flu and wouldn't be able to go on the trip. Well, Stephen goes, I'm going anyhow. And he tells his brother, hey, I'm leaving tomorrow morning early, and I'm going to be going up by Edison Lake somewhere. I don't know. I'll be in that area. Okay. Well, he kind of told him where he was. So early in the morning of the 26th, Stephen drives his truck into the Sierras and parks it on the south side of Thomas Edison Lake. It was a warm, mild day when he left and pulled into the lake. This is Thomas Edison Lake. Mono Creek Campground, the Bear Creek Trailhead. And out in this area out here is the John Muir Trail. So here's Dinkey Creek, right here. And there's Edison Lake, and it's about 14 air miles. Again, Kings Canyon National Park, and there's Half Dome at Yosemite. Kind of get you acclimated to the area there. Well, Stephen was supposed to be home on the 30th. Everyone knew it. He doesn't arrive. On the 31st, his family reports him as a missing person. Explains to the sheriff's office where that truck will be. They drive up there, and the Fresno County deputies do a great job finding the truck immediately on the 1st. It's on the south side of the lake, exactly where they thought. Doors were unlocked, and the keys were still in the ignition. And this location is about 14 miles northeast of Dinkey Creek. I know that when you go up into the woods, people are trusting everything's going to be okay. Everything's going to be fine. Leave my truck unlocked. I don't want to carry the keys because I might lose them. Don't do that. Don't do that. I was with my dad many times when he took his keys and he put them in this is in the old days when you could open the hood of your car from the outside rather than the inside like you have to now. And he used to put the keys in the air filter. Other people put them in the gas tank, where the gas tank top is and where you close the door. Other people put them on top of a tire. I recommend not doing any of that. I recommend that you put it somewhere in the outdoors where nobody would find them. Somewhat close to the car. Under a boulder, something like that, where you know where they're at. And I prefer not to carry a wallet or my keys when I'm going out. But I'll hide them and you won't find them. So Stephen is not at the truck. And he's not home. And he's supposed to be on the 30th. Now, he's not a very experienced backpacker at all. In fact, this was a new excursion for him. So deputies are told all this. They find the truck, and they start calling for resources to move into the area. And as they're doing this, and it's getting late afternoon on November 1st, problems are developing. A storm is moving in. The first storm of the season. And over the next 2 days, 2 feet of snow are dumped in that area. How many times have I told you this? Start of a search. Storm inhibits the effort to find the missing person. I mean, it happens like this all the time. So they can't do anything. They can't get air resources in there. They can't get... It's too bad. They just couldn't go. So they wait till November 3rd. And that morning it starts to clear, and immediately the temperatures start to rise to 70 degrees and the snow starts to melt. Now, the first snow of the season, just in case you guys don't know, it usually doesn't stay on the ground very long because the ground is warm. So warm temperatures outside coupled with warm ground temperatures, that snow's not going to last too long. And right away, Fresno County Sheriff's requests a helicopter from Lemoore Naval Air Station to search for Stephen. And they got it. Helicopter dispatched. This is Stephen. They also got 4 deputies in 4-wheel drive vehicles and they're driving around that area. And they also get an airplane dispatched from their air flight services unit for the sheriff's office. So they got people in there. And what they're looking for, I already know, and you probably do too, they're looking for tracks in the snow. Perfect. Fresh snow. If Steven's up there, they're going to find him tracks. But by the end of that first day, the snow's all gone. Heated it up, ground's gone. Well, the Japanese community in Reedley, California is very tight. When they hear that somebody needs assistance, they all jump in and help. 60 volunteer searchers from Reedley that were personal friends of Ben Nakagawa, Steven's dad, they started arriving to help. The sheriff said that they were between the ages of 19 and 61. And those volunteers stayed up there for several days under the supervision of the sheriff looking for Steven. That is the definition of kindness and friendship. These are all farmers. They walked away from their crops at a great time of need. When somebody is in that great time of need, you drop everything and you help. So November 4th through the 7th, searchers kept moving higher and further away from the truck because they weren't finding anything. Now for somebody like Steven, they're super high in elevation, between 9 and 10,000 feet. He's not used to being at that elevation. He's going to get tired real quick. My guesstimate is 3-mile radius from the truck is going to be the primary search zone, anywhere in that area. The sheriff has a press conference. Sheriff W.R. Young. And after 3 days of intensive searching, he said, "I am baffled by the lack of evidence our searchers are finding." He said he's either dead or he's outside that 25-mile area that we've been searching. 25 miles. Holy cow. I would have never put searchers out that far, but it's a progression. First mile from the truck, second mile, third mile, and they keep moving out. And every time you go out to that perimeter, you're recovering mileage that you've already done before. Sheriff also said that it appears our success won't be likely in this case. The majority of the volunteer searchers had gone home. They had 15 search and rescue members in the field focusing on ravines and cliffs because they were under the belief that since Steven was a rookie backpacker, that he probably fell, made a mistake, and he is in a crevasse or something somewhere. At the end of that day on November 7th, the sheriff made a decision to terminate the search. That was in the paper. Weirdly, very weirdly, the next day, with no explanation why, the sheriff said that he put 6 deputies in a helicopter and flew them back up into that search zone to spend a few days looking. I have no idea why. Maybe it was a plea from the parents. On that same day, in a newspaper called The Freelance, there's an article stating that Steven committed a cardinal sin by hiking alone and that nobody should ever do this. I've said that 100 times. If you're going to do it, then make sure you're carrying a gun and make sure you got a personal locator beacon. 2 days later, on November 10th, there's another press release by the sheriff. And it says that the search and rescue is absolutely terminated at this point. A crushing blow to his family, I'm sure. November 20th. This is when you know somebody is from a great family. Steven's family writes a letter to the Fresno Bee newspaper, big paper. And it tells about their appreciation for the efforts of the Assistant Sheriff Bill Young, Lieutenant Chet Lofgren, Sergeant John Jordan, for their supervising of the search and rescue and the support they showed for the family. And they understood that with the incoming new storm, all search and rescue had to be terminated. I would bet maybe 1 out of every 50 search and rescues, I find a letter like that. Remember, search and rescue, 90% of the time, is done by volunteers. They're spending time away from their family to help another family, and they aren't getting paid, folks. It's a gift of love. And I always tell people, if you have the time, get on your local search and rescue team. Your county has a search and rescue team. And if they don't, ask your sheriff in your county where the closest search and rescue team is, and they'll tell you. They're always looking for volunteers, always. I will tell you that you better be in good shape or you're not going to be any good to them, because they want you pounding the pavement looking for somebody, not sitting around watching and saying, oh, I'm tired. Now, 14 months after Stephen's disappearance, September 22nd, 1979, 2 deer hunters were 1.5 miles from Stephen's truck. On the south side, or correct that, be on the north side of Edison Lake, when they come upon some scattered bones and some small pieces of torn up clothing. They can kind of look at this and say, oh, that's probably a human body right here. So they leave right away, contact the sheriff and the rangers, and the next day the sheriff has 6 of their deputies flown into the area to search the area. And they search it for a full day. Inward, out, looking for more evidence. What they find is they find Stephen's flashlight. They found his wallet, several small pieces of bone, no mandible, no skull, no femur, no boots, no belt. The sheriff made this statement: there were hardly any remains, and they were scattered. It's apparent that the body had been mauled by animals, and its teeth were scattered as well. We have not determined the cause of death in this case, and there's a good chance that the cause will never be known. The remains were in a meadow-like setting. What? Meadow-like setting? Those airplanes had to have flown over that area 10 times. They didn't see this? What? But they knew it was Stephen's. They found the wallet. They found his flashlight. But they didn't find his shoes. Let's go over some facts. The primary search zone would have been within a 3-mile radius of that truck. Stephen was found 1.5 miles from that truck, in a meadow that would be easily seen from the air, and covered multiple times by ground pounders. Where is his backpack and tent? Metal and plastic frames that would last a lifetime. Where are they? Animals aren't going to eat that. So a lake and a creek were very close nearby, so water's nearby. His nephew got sick. Don't forget that. So he had to go alone. Granite everywhere. Everywhere out there. And he's in the middle of a cluster zone of missing people. I was laying in bed the other night thinking about this case. I thought, what would have happened here? I had this epiphany. Maybe it's stupid. I don't know. It makes sense to me. They never found his campsite. And I think his campsite is somewhere out there. I have no idea where, and I don't know how they could have missed it. But it's out there because they didn't find anything associated with the campsite. Let's pretend Stephen's sleeping. Here's a noise outside. Gets up, takes his flashlight, goes out and looks around. And something happens. And he's gone. Or maybe he had to go outside and take a leak. Take the flashlight. Gone. Boots aren't on. Backpack isn't on his back, it's in the tent. The tent is still in its original place. To not find boots, extremely odd. And I'm telling you that, not coming from me. It's coming from rangers and search and rescue people who had done it for decades. And they said, you may not find a body, you may not find any bones, but you'll find the belt and you'll find the boots. Rubber and metal last forever. In the words of many people I've talked to. Small bones found, no skull, no large pieces of clothing. And remember what he said. The sheriff was baffled because of no clues and no evidence. Yet, there's Stephen right there in the meadow, a mile and a half from his truck. How is that possible? And no, I'm not indicting search and rescue in the least. Fresno County is one of the more thorough search and rescue teams in the world because they have a ton of practice. Yeah, something really odd happened to Stephen Nakagawa. And does that surprise me in that Dinkey Creek area? No way. You've heard tons of strange stories coming out of there. Now, we're in the kindness revolution. It costs us nothing to be kind. Sometimes when I'm out on a hike with Huck, there'll be a family walking by, and kids always see a big, white, lovely little dog, big dog, and they want to come over and hug her. And sometimes Huck is just in one of those moods. I've never heard her growl at a child yet, but she'll just kind of move away a little bit or something. Other times she's all over them, licking them, hugging them, playing with them. But sometimes I'll just say, I'll put my arm around her and say, Huck, be nice. Be nice. And she kind of looks at me, and I think she understands, okay, kids aren't going to be around a long time, and they just want to hug you and love on you. And she'll let them do that then. That's kindness. Making time in your day for somebody else is important. They have some needs that you may not know about. And if hugging Huck and taking a couple minutes out of my day means something to them, then we're going to do it. That's important in life. Giving of yourself for someone else. Friends, I appreciate you being here. Please post these on your social media. That would be very helpful to us. You can watch all 3 of my movies on Tubi, T-U-B-I, right now. Missing 411, Missing 411 The Hunted, and Missing 411 The UFO Connection. And you can buy my books at NA, like North America, nabigfootsearch.com, $24.95 there, and they're $50 to $150 on Amazon. Don't buy them there. Thank you for your kindness in being here. Love you guys. Paulides out.